Good evening. All right, what we have here is in the restoration category. I picked this radio up, about a year ago in a yard sale, missing knobs, and no one knowing what it was. Fortunately, I did, and picked it up for a very small sum. Taking it home, I realized that this would be a good candidate for our restoration category in this contest. So I spent about a month thinking that it would be an easy restoration, and turning out that it wasn't. It had to spend a lot of time down in the basement or a damp garage, and the transformers were shot. So I had to go through the junk box and then a friend of mine's junk box to find transformers that were compatible, which I did. And now what I do want to say about it is that the parts within the radio are vintage 20s parts, and I try to keep it that way also from battery sets. Well, judging by the tubes that were used, we're going back into the 30s, so we're jumping ahead from the 20s into the 30s for the restoration, because it's using a number 19 tube, which is a high mu twin power triode in the output, and a medium mu triode number 30 as a detector. The battery pack, I tried to duplicate just the exterior with it, and within it I have 9 volts and also C cells, making up the variety of different voltages that we need. Now you have to take my word on this, folks. In my basement, last night, this was a hot radio on my antenna, okay? It's just barely breaking into oscillation on whatever we're transmitting right now. But I got a kick out of how simple the radio was, and thinking that maybe a young fellow in the early 1930s put this together. And from the primitive handle just to the box, there's not much to it. But I'll try and turn it around here, and you can see through the components that it is all vintage 20s. It has no feet. It's just a handle, and to take it apart and put it together, you had to use your screwdriver. So I didn't change any of that. I didn't improve on it, which it certainly needed improvement. But I wanted to keep it the way it was, figuring out of respect for this radio builder from the early 30s, that I try and bring it back to life, which I did, but not here tonight anyway. Thank you very much.
Okay, that was Richard Lee, number 12 in restoration. Next, Steve Landra.
Okay. I'll stand up here so we don't get any feedback. I can't stand that. Okay, all the way over here is a little 45 player, which most of you guys know that I've been head over heels for as soon as I got to this club and found out that Phil was into it and wrote the book, and I can't put the book down. My book is all dog-eared and beat up because I don't close it. This here is what I call the Victor Calarad. Now, I know that's a little strange, but of course, RCA Victor, the turntable. The Cala comes from my name that's in there, and the Rad is Sherman Conrad, my high school teacher who designed the amplifier that was inside. I built it in 1973, and it was hanging around my basement. I had no idea what to use it for, but I thought about it. I found this old cabinet getting thrown out where I used to work, and it's just a bare box. I don't even know what was in it. And I says, I got to put a phonograph in it. So I managed to put the 3-tube amplifier in there, a 12-volt DC pilot light and fan that fires out the bottom, and a MD7 Shure stereo cartridge with a preamp in it. I got these cheap speakers at the flea market. Actually, the speakers inside, they're 8-inch coaxials. And I paid like real cheap, something like $3 or $4 a piece for them, and stuck them in these boxes. I went a little crazy on the turntable. I changed the color. It was gold. I used metallic copper Rust-Oleum color, and I also have an FM tuner to go with it, so to plug into the back of the unit. But I like these things, and I've gotten 4 or 5 of them up and running in the last 6 or 8 months. That's all I can say. I mean, I'll turn it on for a moment here so you can hear what it sounds like. It hums like a banshee, but you can tell I like swing music. And that's stereo. Doesn't go much louder than that. 2 watts a channel. And maybe later on I'll play more for you this time. I guess that's about it, Al.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. Are we putting you in restoration or in open?
Open,
where do you
I
want to
think.
be? Open? Okay.
Open sounds good.
So Steve is number 10 in the open category. I'll present Marv Bieferman's entry, which is number 1 in the 2-tube category. He calls it the toilet talker because it's made out of a baby wipes container. Little 1-tube set with, I think, a 1S4 on the inside here. 22.5 volt battery, an A battery in the bottom, and the headphone is built into it, so you can use it this way with the handy antenna on the back deployed. I was playing earlier. It's not very sensitive, but it plays. And so there it is, Marv's Toilet Talker. He's number 1 in the 2-tube category.
What's he using as a tube again?
I think it's a 1S5. 1S5. Okay, we have Rob Flory. I'll let him tell you about his entry.
When my grandfather was in high school, he wanted to build a radio, and he asked his physics teacher for some help. And this is in Kansas. So his physics teacher said, don't bother with the crystal set. You won't hear anything. Build a little regen. And I found this article from the New York Herald radio magazine from 1924 in his files after he died, and decided to build that radio. So it's what I'm calling a farm set, because it's a pretty crude construction, but it works rather well. It's fairly selective, and while DXing for the DX contest, I've received Cuba, Kansas City, Texas, and I took it with me camping with some batteries, cabin camping in Colorado, and picked up Texas and Chicago from there. So it's a pretty nice working little radio. It's a 201A regen. Number 8.
Which category should I have you in, Rob?
I guess this is open, isn't it?
Well,
It's a 1-2.
There we go.
We're doing 0, 1, and 2 tubes in one category, but if you want to campaign,
Well, if 0, 1, and 2 are a category, then
yeah.
there it is.
Count Rob in 2-2. Next, Tom. Oh, who's next? Here's Sal. Okay.
Going back here. Okay, I kind of procrastinated to building this radio. I started on it this Monday. I built the case Monday. I mounted the capacitor, the regen control, and 2 tubes on Tuesday, and today I did the rest. From winding the coil, painting the box, and wiring the 2 tubes and everything underneath there. It's called Sal's Junk Box Radio. It has 2 1T4 tubes in there. First tube is just a untuned RF stage, and the second one is a regen. As you can see, my little caption there, and it says, and it works like crap too, and it really does. And the only way I was able to get a signal was if I put my hand over this coil, and I was able to pull in a radio station in my house over here with this shield that's around this building. Forget about it. But the reason why I just called the junk box radio is I just used parts that I had laying around in my house and quickly put it together for this contest. I should have spent more time on it, but you know, as things go on, I just never had the chance. And that's about it with this guy here. The other guy, just as a note, I just built it just a 1-tube Nixie clock. I just brought it here for the heck of it, in case anybody wants to take a look at it. I had nothing else better to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Sal. Let's see, who's next here? Oh, the transmitter. Introduce yourself, and I'll come back here.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Steve Tatorka. I'm in open category, and what I've produced is a 3-watt continuous wave transmitter for 80 and 40 meter ham bands. It was designed by the famous Louis McCoy, who was technical assistant of QST magazine, And his claim to fame was fundamentally taking TV sets and making things for hands out of TV sets. And he never met up to the challenge of taking anything that was made for hands and turning it into a TV set. So that's what he's famous for. The design was published by him in November 1953. Fundamentally, it's a modified Pierce oscillator with a pi network. It's that simple. So you have an oscillator with a 6AG7, whose finish I polished off to make it look like a nose cone. At that time, if I might briefly explain, I was a ham radio operator when I was 16 years old back in 1963. I operated for 2 years, and then our government wanted to send young men and women over to Southeast Asia to kill people and destroy a country, and I got wrapped up in that, and the most fortunate person to come back from that event. So what I'm doing fundamentally, after 40 years, I've gotten my ham radio license back. I got my original call letter back, and capturing my youth. So this is, I guess, my 5th childhood. I can't wait for the 6th. 3 watts. I had to. Thank you. Vintage components for the most part, as best as I could obtain. Traditional circuitry on the power supply, which puts out nominally, actually it's putting out about 350 volts to the plate. I had it as much as 700 volts, and I had that 6AG7 at 15 watts. And it didn't glow. It started smelling, and I said, gee, that smells good. It's like that old ham radio smell, because tubes smell. And I said, wait a minute, it shouldn't smell that much. So thanks to Ray Chase, I got a dropping resistor, and I got it down to 3 watts. You have a pi network. Again, I tried to use small components to fit into the rather challenging shape. It's crystal controlled. This is standard ham technology, and fundamentally my antenna is a dummy load. And yes, back in the old days we did use light bulbs, even though the resistance changes with the heat. Back in those days, that's what you did. And you got the light bulb bright, you just switched to coax, and you transmit it, and that's what you did. So to prove that it does work, I have the light bulb to show the energy going there, and this is a modern receiver tuned to the frequency. Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Thank you very much.
What's your best DX with this thing?
Actually, I haven't put it on an antenna. I did put it on the antenna, but after 40 years of not using Morse code, I passed the test by making the minimum score, because when you pass the test, you have to have 36 points. Numbers and exclamation points and things of that nature are 2 points. So the 3 gentlemen who with the hand club were checking the code score, and they said, well, gee, sorry, you didn't make it. And one guy said, well, wait a minute, what's this? And I said, and before I could say what it was, he said, is that a period? So I said, well, it looks like a period at the end of that sentence. He said, you just passed. So they were gracious to give me that. So I know A, B, I know my call letters. I have not used this operationally, but one last thing, if I may. This is called a semi-automatic key. Semi-automatic in the sense that the dots are made by a vibrating arm. This is not tuned mechanically. That's as best as it'll get. That's as opposed to the straight key where you actually pound down. So this was the actual key that I used when I was 16 years old in Purchase in Newark, New Jersey, where I grew up. By one way or another, it stayed someplace all this period of time, and this is the one thing I have left from when I was a young man. Thank you very much.
Could you stand on the other side of it and press the key, because I couldn't see it, so we could see the light.
Press the key.
Press the key.
Oh.
Yeah, long down.
Oh.
Okay.
Curiously, the power ramps up, as you could see. And don't ask me why.
Okay, thank you. That's Steve Tatorka, open category, contestant number 6. Walt Heskey has two entries for us here. Go ahead. Were you next, or is Tom Yeah, let's do them in order. Gary? Gary D'Amico, he's number 3. 2 categories, he's got no tunes.
No tubes, crystal set. And as Sal did, 2 nights, Sal.
Oh, 2 nights?
2 nights. It's a 2-tune circuit variety, and there's a variety of a lot of old parts, 1925 parts. And the primary circuit is out of a car radio. It's variable impedance, variable inductance, with a trimmer on it, and actually it works quite well with a decent antenna on it. And as of about 11 o'clock last night. So I was hearing the signal in here, but hasn't worked in probably the last 15 or 20 minutes. But basically, that's it.
Next year we'll get some real power in here for you guys.
I heard it.
So radio
I can hear it.
Yeah.
But,
Okay, well, go ahead.
This first entry I've got here is what I call the lucite. Is that good? Actually, I put this together a couple of years back, and other things happened, and I never had a chance to really finish it. But the idea here was we had a sheet of lucite in the shop, and you know how you see something like there was a Helicrafters, I think, rig somebody had in a magazine or a book, and it just struck me, wow, wouldn't it be great to build a radio that you could see all the parts inside of? And then at the same time, there was an opportunity here to build for the contest a 2-tube rig. So I thought about it for a while, and I thought, well, maybe I'd come up with something, you know, combine the 2 issues here. And the result was what I call the Lucite Wonder here, which is a 2-tube, 2-band shortwave, low end of shortwave from about 4 megahertz up to about 8 or 9 megahertz, depending on which way the wind is blowing, you can get a signal. And the other part is the AM broadcast band. I'm using cathode regeneration, which is inherently more stable than plate regeneration, as many of you know. I did that because I was reading a book about it, and it seemed to have an interesting, it was an interesting idea to follow up on. And the result is I took a 6F7, which is a pentode and diode. It's actually a pentode and a triode. It's 2 tubes in one. And the pentode is what I'm using for the input signal, and then I'm feeding back some regen into that through the cathode. Then I come out of that into a 1N34A, a little diode. I'm rectifying with a solid-state diode. I come out of that and go into the other side of the 6F7, which is the first audio amplification stage. So once you come out of the diode, you're already doing audio. Then I come out of that and I go into the front end of, I couple through a transformer into the front end of a 117N7. Many of you know the 117N7, 117L7 is my favorite tube because you can run it off right off the line current, and we use it for the little 7s that many of you probably know about, the little phono oscillator that I was circulating for a while, and some of you have, and it's on the website at Phil's Old Radios if you want to look at it. We're using one tonight to put out a little signal here as well. That 117N7 has 2 pieces in it as well. And one side is a diode for the line current, the other side is another stage of audio amplification. It's a pentode. So I get 2 stages of audio out of this thing, and with a decent signal you can hear it. I later on added a tone control using, I think maybe I've spoken to Steve about this, a false bass and kind of a false treble control using a capacitor through a 100K pot, and then on the other side an actual coil, about 85 millihenries, to give me basically the bass, the high notes and the low notes. If you play with that, you'll see the effect. It's one of the things to play with that I thought might be interesting, if you just want to see a little feature about this radio. Other than that, it uses plug-in coils. The coils themselves are made from pill containers. We accumulated a lot of those at my house at one time, so they were sitting around wondering what we should do with them. They turn out to fit perfectly into the sockets of your old octal, your disposable octal radio tubes. So if you pop off the glass and break it all out, you're left with a nice little socket with not pins on it. You can fit this pillbox on, wind your coil, and then run your leads into the pins of the radio tube plug, and then you've got a nice plug-in coil.
basically for cheap, you know, and then you can plug it into a regular octal socket. So that's what I did here. And you can see 4, 2 for each stage. So essentially I've got, you know, like a coil, 2 coils for each stage, because I'm tuning basically the first coil with the 6F7, and then I come out of that and I also tune through a second coil before I go into my audio stage. Okay, so it's like 2 stages of RF tuning. And there's a fine tuning control as well with a coarse tuning control. So it was a lot of fun to string that together. One more thing I'll mention, then I'll go on. The pulleys, if you take a look at the pulleys, you may recognize there the wheels from HO scale train wheels, you know, the modeling stuff. I glued the 2 backs of the wheels together to create the pulley, the actual pulley itself, and then put that on an axle and cut holes in the lucite so that it would turn. And that way it gives you that nice rotary motion that you're looking for. Okay, so that's that rig. That's the Lucite Wonder. That's a 2-tube radio. I figured that's the 2-tube category. The other entry I have here was something I was kind of not really sure about entering, but Marty saw this and said, well, you mean you can't finish this in time for the club meet? And that was about a month ago. This is what I call, this is a 5-tube super heterodyne receiver. It runs off of a, I guess right now you can say it's two packs of 36 volts. These little garage door opener batteries. I may have mentioned this in the club a couple weeks ago. We had a meeting. I think I mentioned I was running a small battery-powered radio off of this. They work pretty well for this kind of application. These tubes are sub-miniature. They're pencil tubes. They're not the same size like the 1T4s. They're actually a lot smaller than that. There's a little brochure up here if you want to take a look. I have a picture of it. I used 5 of them. There's an RF amplifier stage, is a 2E32. That feeds into a 2G22 mixer. And the mixer basically is what creates, you know, your 455 kilohertz signal in an oscillator circuit, and then blends that with the incoming RF to give you that single frequency signal that's going to go through the rest of your radio. What comes out of the 2G22 then goes into an RF amp stage, another 2E32. And then that gets rectified through a 1N34 diode. Again, I'm using a diode to do the detection. I come out of the diode and I go back into another 2E32 for my first stage of amplification, audio. And then I come out of that and go into a 2E36 power tube. The output of the 2E36 is 0.006 watts. Now compare that with the standard, you know, maybe 50C5 where you're getting better than a watt, maybe 1.2 watts. We're talking about 6 milliwatts.
Receiver. I don't know, I had one of the old ARRL, how to become a ham operator. I guess it was, what, the late 40s or so. I don't know, I looked at it, liked the way it looked and so on. I says, well, let me see if I can build this thing. So I'm going over to flea markets and stuff over the, the course of the season. Basically, I found a lot of new old stock. So I picked up all this stuff, put it together, and the amazing thing was the coil, I found a couple of them, and I guess Gary gave me a couple of them also, already pre-wound, so I didn't have to wind any of the coils and so on. You just stuck them in there and just figured out where I had to tap them and so on, and that was basically it. The receiver works quite well. In here, forget about it. But other than that, I mean, it's, like I said, it's new old stock, simple design. It uses a, 6C8 for the tube, and I don't know, I just like the way the thing looks and the way the thing, you know, sounds sometimes. That's about it. Very simple.
Okay, and we got one more set here. Jack?
I decided a couple of years ago that I was going to build a breadboard receiver and transmitter. I finished the receiver. The transmitter, I'm still collecting a few parts for it with a number 10 tube. The receiver's plain regen. It's got a, what do you call it, coupler, and a 199 tube. I'm running it on about 25 volts P plus and 3 volts on the filament. Outside I get about 3 stations down home with 50. I'm not sure. The center of the dial is somewhere around 900 kc or kilohertz. And this originally came from an article in Electric Radio. I don't have to know this person, but Bob Dennison up in Westmont, New Jersey. Anybody know about him?
Yeah, he used to be a member of the club.
Yeah. He wrote this 1993 issue.
Still published?
Yeah, they still, Electric Radio's still published. They moved.
They have a website.
Yeah, I think a Google search will find Electric Radio.
Electric Radio. Somebody else recognizes
I think they even advertise in QST, maybe in the back, free copy for $3. I mean, an initial copy. Something like that. That's about it.
Okay, thank you. I miss Tom Provost here, and he's got a beautiful radio, so tell us about it, Tom.
Okay, what I have here is a dual twin triode regenerative receiver. It's basically similar to the twinplex circuit that was popular in the 30s. But this circuit has 4 stages in it, and 2 of those stages correct some of the problems that were common to a twin triode receiver, namely that the RF stage that this receiver has buffers the detector from the antenna, so that if you change your antenna from a short one to a long one, it doesn't affect your detector and shift your dial reading. And the other additional stage is another audio stage, which gives you more headphone volume. This is a plug-in receiver, so it's an all-wave receiver. I have in it tonight an 80-meter coil, which goes from 3 megahertz to 7 megahertz, and takes in the 80-meter handband. And it works very well on that, but unfortunately in the shielding here, that's not receivable. I also made some changes to the circuit to reduce one of the other problems that simple regens have, and that's hum. And there's a number of things that I mentioned on the sheet here that you may want to look at and incorporate in any simple receivers that you build, because they're very effective and make it a much more usable receiver. That's it.
Yeah, can you go through the numbers?
Well, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take about 10 minutes for you to come up here and wander around. There's a card by each entry with a number on it, vote by number. And we had a bookkeeping error, which meant that Marv got 4 prizes instead of 3. So we'll give 2 prizes in the 2-tube category because there's a lot of people there. So let's take until 20 after the hour and turn your, yes, John?
Like 2 category, you mean 1 or 2?
1, 2, 0, 1, or 2. But vote by the number of the category. Vote by the number of the category is on the tag by the entries.
What's the charge on a camera? It's an electron across space. It's kind of cool. I can play with the bias and get what I want.
Is it 920? It is 920. Yes?
Did you put this on the seat jacket right there?
This one?
That
that
you
one.
can put it on either one. Thank you.
have a bunch of transfers. It's simple, but I don't need hardly any seed. It's just so big, you know.
I asked that for a reason. I was on a garage sale. I asked her for a reason. No. This is a really nice day. I had a garage sale. And I'm not paying attention. I'm wondering when I see the orange. 5 minutes up. I have a Firebird. Oh my God! It's silver. It's a lift. Well, some of them I have. Back of the house.
Okay, Arthur.
I was just there a couple of days ago.
They have a basement full of surplus test equipment, which came, what I can tell. RCA and Bell Labs. Probably from Mario.
But you know what? He charges a lot of money for these things now.
I know one.
Yeah? Oh, you figured it out?
I know
No.
one.
Excuse me, sweetie.
Once you talk to him, he's really reasonable. I've left there with...
You gotta be careful with that. He got the sensitivity on it. Yeah. Because you can't get that, they don't make that print. It's like no substitute.
Well, we'll try to get everybody down front here. Yeah, down in front. Take a seat. That's what we need to do.
It's right here, sitting down.
What are we doing? Yes. Oh, you're shooting.
I can stop.
I'd like somebody to present while I read. Restoration Division. It was unanimous. Richard Lee, first place restoration. Richard, we have a nice plaque for you here. We also have an AES catalog with a $25 gift certificate. Okay, now Richard can present now that he's gotten that.
I'll take it. Thank you.
Competition in the open class was pretty hot and heavy. Votes were spread around real well, but Steve Tatorka with his 3-watt transmitter bested everybody else by about 4 points. Oh, okay. We can do all of this.
There we go. 1, 2, 3. Thank you, everybody.
Okay, and in the 2-tube category, which was where most of the people were, we're going to give 2 prizes. Second place with a twinplex is Tom Provost. We'll get a plaque. Come on up. We'll get a plaque for you later on. We'll get a catalog for you later on. We'll do a $25 gift certificate.
Most important.
Here, pretend that's the plaque.
1, 2, 3. Thank you.
There we go. In first place, by a wide margin, Walt Heska with his Lucite radio. Really.
Wait. 1. Ready, guys? Here we go. 1, 2, 3.
Thank you.
Is there anything for last place?
Okay, thank you, folks.